Today on Locked On Red Wings, how will the new general managers in the Eastern Conference affect the Detroit Red Wings?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer for the Daily J, a WWJ News Radio podcast, while Scott is host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Scotty, Friday episode, we're going to be kind of laid back about it. We've been kind of hammering hard. Trade proposals, free agent signings, draft profiles. We kind of just want to have a low-key Friday. And to do so, we're going to get pissed off. I'm going to get pissed off about jersey patches. Keep it nice and low-key. But in a little bit. We're going to talk today, guys, about the Cup Final, because by the time we don't do Saturday and Sunday episodes, obviously, and the Cup Final starts on Saturday. So we're going to talk about our predictions for the Cup Final, what we think of the matchup in regards to Florida versus Vegas. We're going to talk about the jersey patch that was unveiled for the Florida Panthers and how its placement is hideous, and we all have jersey ads to blame. And we're going to talk about the new general managers in the Eastern Conference, and that's Brad Treliving with the Toronto Maple Leafs and Kyle Dubas with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and how that might affect the Detroit Red Wings. And then, of course, if we have time, we'd like to finish off with a quick how do you feel about it Friday. But first of all, Scotty, happy Friday, buddy.
Happy Friday, man. Yeah, no, I like the docket we have today just because we are, obviously we talk a lot about the Wings and whatnot, but we haven't had too many opportunities lately, at least, just to kind of look throughout the league and talk about all of the news and notes and big things that have been happening. I think the last time we really did that was on the Coyotes night. That was really the last time we did kind of non-Red Wings, just a league overview, because we talked about playoffs and stuff around then as well. So yeah, just kind of looking around the league and talking about our feelings of what's happening, outside of the Red Wings organization, but still how it affects us at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And we want to start off talking about these Cup Final predictions because on Saturday, obviously, we all know the Florida Panthers as the 8th seed, having upset the Boston Bruins, then the Toronto Maple Leafs, and then having beat the Carolina Hurricanes, get to face off against the Vegas Golden Knights, who won the Pacific Division in the Cup Final. And I want to know your opinion on this, Scotty. Do you think, well, one, I want to know who you have between the two, but one, do you think that the long layoff that the Florida Panthers have had, 9 whole days before the start of Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final after having swept the Carolina Hurricanes, is gonna, kind of kill their momentum?
So, in general, I am not a massive, I don't want to say believer, because it's objectively true, but I'm not a massive the long layoff really hurts you kind of person. That in all sports, that's always a conversation. Anytime one team makes it to a round way before another team, right, and there's a big layoff, that's always a big question mark. In general, I don't think it has as much of a negative effect on a team that maybe the general public thinks. But I mean, it that's a long time.
9 days.
That's still that's almost a week and a half. That is a really, really long time. So I don't know. I think if it does, it might just be a Game 1 thing, and then they'll get. I don't think it'll derail the entire series. And I do still have Florida, I guess, to transition into who I think is going to win. I do still have Florida. I just think the top end talent, as well as the great equalizer, which is a hot goalie, and that is a heck of a duo they have right now with Tkachuk and Bob. So I'm gonna go with Florida still. I'll say it goes 6. I'll take
6
Florida.
games?
And I'll take Panthers in 6. I think it'll be a relatively close series, but I don't know. That's a team that, again, you just listed off all the teams that they have beaten already. When they're at their best, I think it's not even a subjective thing. I think it's pretty objective. No team in the NHL can beat them when they're at their best.
I mean, let's rephrase that to say no team in the NHL can beat Sergei Bobrovsky, because as much as we praise the Florida Panthers and how well they've been playing, they do have a very aggressive forecheck, and it's just a great it's a fun style of hockey to play. They got shelled in a lot of those games against the Carolina Hurricanes. You look back on those shot attempts and the shot differential, and it's Carolina with almost 40 and then Florida with like 23. Like you said, the great equalizer is Sergei Bobrovsky. So you need to hope that those 9 days off don't kill that. I mean, that momentum is a huge thing. And it's a double-edged sword, these layoffs. Because on one hand, as long of a layoff as this is, it's kind of hard to like keep that fervor going, that flame going. And obviously they're professionals. They should be prepared to go any given day, any given night. But there is an element of truth to that. That the long layoffs, there is an element of truth to that. Now, the great teams can overcome that. But on the other side of things, 9 whole days to get healthy. If there's guys who've been banged up, bruised up, have like sprains or whatever, obviously if you have a broken bone, that's not going to get fixed in 9 days, but that's 9 days to get back to 100% health. So that is a bit of a double-edged sword. And it's not to say also that Vegas hasn't had a layoff, because I don't like that the NHL did this, but I understand why the NHL did this. The NHL delayed starting the series until Saturday 1, because starting on a Saturday is just going to get you better viewership, but also that gives Vegas a layoff as well. So Vegas had a layoff. I think they finished on Monday or Tuesday was their final game. And so that's going to be 4 or 5 days. It's not like it's 2 days and they're right back in it. So they had a layoff too. Now, the other factor into why they waited so long, the Stanley Cup or the NHL to start the Stanley Cup final, is because if it goes 7 games, you have a little over a week between the end of the Stanley Cup final and the NHL draft. They're trying to parlay it into the next season, which I completely understand. I completely get, but I don't like that. Feel like while putting it on a Saturday is smart, the long delay between the end of the conference finals and the start of the Stanley Cup finals is almost going to have people taper off interest in the Stanley. Like the NHL is already considered a niche sport in a lot of people's eyes. There are people out there who don't know who Connor McDavid is, despite the fact that he's the best player in hockey, because it's considered still a niche sport. To have that long layoff, anyone who is garnering interest that's like a fringe fan is going to just completely lose interest. And I don't like it. I don't like that long layoff.
So I understand what you're saying. My counterpoint is this is happening at the exact same time as the NBA finals, and they're avidly trying to avoid having those on the same day for a reason.
And I get that. It works out great if you're Florida too, because then you have every other day.
Right. So I guess my counter to that is like I understand your point, but they are doing everything in their power to make it the premier sporting event every single night it's on. And to that, even though I think the NHL marketing department is probably the worst of the 4 American sports, either that or MLB's, they are at least doing something to try and avoid having and I don't know how the rest of the series is going to play out, or if like after game 4 when it's all TBD games, I don't know how those line up with the NBA finals, but at least they're trying off rip to prevent an overlap there, which is at least something, I guess.
That's fair. And I don't think I gave my pick yet on who I think is going to win. I think, honestly, I mean, my heart, despite the hat that I'm wearing, my heart does want Florida to win, just because there's something about that Vegas Golden Knights team that I just don't really jive with.
Say it. No, say it with your chest, man. No one likes them. Like, I don't know why we have to pretend like, oh, they're like the cute new team. Like, I know they're not the newest team anymore, but like pretty much since their first year, like no one has liked them. Like genuinely, I don't know if it was like if it's a personnel thing maybe, but like I don't know, like they don't have like a bunch of,
I think it's like
horrible individual, but like
it's
arrogance. It's weird. Like they got success right away, and some people envied that. That's certainly a thing, but like no one really likes Vegas already, and like they're not that old of a team. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, I've gone to a Vegas Golden Knights game. I was lucky enough to be in Vegas at the time when Vegas was playing Tampa back in early 2020, right before the pandemic hit, in fact. And I got to see a game. And that's when I picked up this hat, and the atmosphere is phenomenal. I put on a great show. Yeah, but you're right,
for sure.
There is an element of arrogance, and maybe I'm interpreting arrogance where there is none, because I envy that fact that they saw success so early. But like 6 years in the league, back-to-back Stanley Cup finals, having only missed the playoffs 1 year, not back-to-back cup finals, but 2 cup finals, only having missed the playoffs in 1 year. a little bit of
And
envy in
even
me.
that year they missed,
Yeah.
like that was a historic choke job. Like they should have, they were in prime position to, and just completely fell apart in the last month of the season. So,
but I think even bigger than that, bigger than the little bit of envy I have towards their immediate success in the NHL, which let's admit it is actually good for the league, for expansion teams to succeed right off rip. Seattle making the playoffs this year after their inaugural season was a down year.
Matty B.
For the NHL. Got to admit, those are great things for the NHL outside of my own petty personal envy. My other issue is, and this is the bigger issue, is like the cap circumvention crap that they pull. Any team that does that stuff, it drives me nuts. Tampa did it.
Sure.
Tampa did it, and I didn't like it. Chicago did it, and I didn't like it. Arizona's doing it now on the opposite end, and I don't like it. And I think that the NHL needs to step in and like close the loophole so teams can't do this. Like, oh, your star player is miraculously healthy right in the time of the Stanley Cup playoffs beginning when the cap goes away. Which, why does the cap go away during the Stanley Cup playoffs? I don't understand that. It makes no sense to me.
So in 3 years when we do it.
Well, see, it's okay if we.
Oh, okay. Okay. Just clarify that. Okay, cool.
No,
yeah,
but it's wrong when anyone does it. I mean, it's legal, and if it's as long as it's legal, like keep taking advantage of it because you'd be stupid not to, right? But also, like the NHL should close that loophole
for sure. I get what you're saying.
So, but all that given, I do think Vegas is going to win because I think Jack Eichel, much like Matt Tkachuk, has reached that next level in the playoffs, and Aiden Hill's been great as well. But I think in the end, Vegas is going to have those playoff playmakers and a deeper team to follow behind.
They got a lot, man.
They're such a deep team.
They got a lot over there.
Yeah. So great team. I'm envious of them. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
We're going to take
Stone.
Huh?
Playoff Stone.
Playoff Stone. He is such a horrible, like, I don't have any room to talk because I can't skate, but he cannot skate, and yet he's so good.
And it just doesn't matter.
It doesn't make sense. How are you so good, but you just like look like you're chopping the ice with your feet every time you take a. I don't get it.
It's so funny.
He's
the
something. We're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna talk about those Stanley Cup jersey patches because I'm gonna get on my soapbox, Scotty. I'm really sorry.
No, you know what? Go off, man.
And then we're going to talk about the two new general managers in the Eastern Conference. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about Gametime. Gametime is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, hockey, concert, comedy, theater, and so much more. The Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're set. And they're sent directly to your phone so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress using Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, did you see? So the Florida Panthers unveiled their jersey with the Stanley Cup patch on it, right? Did you see it? Have you seen it? Let me ask you your thoughts before I go on a 10-minute monologue.
I don't think it's I don't think it's very visually appealing. I will say I don't think that it.
What is that you said last? You said something last segment to me. Say it with your chest. Say it. Say it. You're gonna say it. Say it, Scotty.
It is not optically very pleasing. It does not look very good. I fully agree with that. I think that I actually like the premise of like adding something to the jersey and adding, the stuff to the ice, that like the cup stuff. Like I really like that. I think it's really cool, and basketball does it too. And I think it's a cool thing that those two sports do. And I really like the idea of adding, like cup stuff on the jerseys, but the location on the jersey of where they chose to place this specific patch, I think is honestly horrific. And I think that the entire thing looks it looks like a collage you make in like elementary school, you know, when you have to just like glue a bunch of pictures from magazines on a piece of paper and you're like, look, I'm an artist. Like that's what it looks like. It's just a bunch of stuff slapped on all over a jersey. That's pretty much how I feel.
Yeah, this is my old man takes, like where I'm, the old man yells at cloud. It's the progression of, the progression of greed, stripping away some of the little things that what made the NHL great. And you kind of touched on it there. Obviously, it's been years since we lost the Stanley Cup Final logos on the ice.
Yeah.
We've had projected ads for almost a decade at this point. It feels like it started off with just like ads behind the glass, right? Well, then with COVID happening, they came out and they used the excuse of, we lost so much money because of COVID that we're going to try this and that. This and that happened to be more projected ads, which we have just plastered on the boards and plastered on the ice. They look like crap because, the camera's moving and these are static images that just like shift with the camera. They're moving with the camera. Right. And because of the location of these ads, they put them where the Stanley Cup Final logo would have been on the ice. And then we elevated to the helmets. And I said, when they made it onto players' bodies, that it's not going to stop there. Jerseys were next. And they told us, and they lied to our faces. Said it was a lie right off rip, that if they put it on the helmets, it's going to be on the jersey ads next. And we were told that, this is going to be temporary. We try to make up the revenue from COVID. Just a freaking lie. And then, I think it was less than a year after that, we saw an image leak of Alex Ovechkin wearing a jersey. It was like a promotional image with the ad on his jersey. And I'm like, there it is. Now the Red Wings, they tested out moving their letter to the opposite side so that if they got jersey sponsors, they wanted to see how it would look with a smaller letter above the tip. They didn't get one this year. They kept the smaller little letter, but moved it back to where it was above the wheel, which is just better. It just looks better. Scotty, it just looks better right there. And now here we are. We're at Stanley Cup Final, and the cup, the Stanley Cup logo, which traditionally goes opposite of the letters on any given jersey, has to be butted up right next to the letter, making it look super crowded because they sold ad space on the jersey and they cannot contractually move it. So advertisers and dollars continue to strip away little things that made the sport great. And I know I sound like an old man yelling at clouds.
No, you're right, though. Don't even feel bad about it.
But it's so ugly.
Yeah, don't feel bad about it. It does look bad. The most frustrating part is, I honestly would not be as against it. And this might not even be like a popular take, but like if they had the ad over there, but the ad actually covered up the entire space, I would be like, okay, well, there literally is no other room. There is a sea of space there. There is a 6-acre farm sized like blank space of jersey there, just like white, plain, nothing there. But they can't have anything over there, so they have to bunch it up next to the C and the A over. So like
and that's like just, 3 players that are going to have that problem, but it looks for sure.
And like I get that as well, but it's just like there's so much room, just like literally right under. I forget what their ad is off the top of my head, but like there's so much room right underneath their ad that like you could very much fit both over there. But
or you could simply slide the ad up like 2 inches, and like honestly, it wouldn't even look bad. You literally
don't even need to do that. I'm telling you, there is so much space over there. There's so much space. It's just blank. And that's the most frustrating part to me is just the optics of like they have to bunch it all up over here and then just have an open, nothing happening. I don't know. It doesn't look good, and it's very easily fixable,
and I understand
in the way.
I want to say I wish they had put jersey ads on the base of the jerseys.
Yeah.
Because that's like a nice not hidden place, but like less visually disgusting place to put it. But I also understand why advertisers would hear that opinion and be like, that's why we don't want it there, because it's not as visible. They want it somewhere really visible, and on front of a jersey player's chest is the most visible place. But like how long we talk about slippery slope fallacy, and people are going to tell people every step of the way, people are going to tell you it's not a big deal. Like it's not going to, like, you're being a baby. But how long until jerseys are moved to the base of the jersey because they want to put an advertiser's name where the nameplate would be? Like we see this in Europe. And the European teams, those leagues aren't as well funded as the NHL. So they genuinely probably need the advertising dollars to keep afloat. And I understand that. The NHL doesn't have that problem. The NHL is so chock full of advertising dollars, especially now that gambling is legal in so many states. Like, are you telling me these teams genuinely needed jersey advertisers to help make the cap go up? I don't buy that. Show me, if you can show me proof that selling ad space on the ice, so they can't put the Stanley Cup Final ice on, or Stanley Cup Final logo on the ice, and that selling ad space on, I can honestly live with the helmets. That doesn't bother me as much. What bothered me is I saw where it was going. But the helmet or the jersey ad, if you can show me data that shows that these jersey ads directly led to the salary cap going up the next few years, then maybe I'll ease off this. But like, I just feel like that everyone says that, and I just never see proof of that. It just feels like a talking point to make us swallow it.
Right. No, I agree with you. And we can go back to the episode when we got jersey ads, and that conversation that we had where I was more of the take of one ad is not going to kill your viewer experience. You're not even going to notice him on the ice. But these things like this.
You're talking about the helmet ads.
Sorry?
You're talking about helmet ads. You said jersey ads.
Yeah. Helmet ads. Sorry. Yeah. So like so I just had this conversation with the Tiger jersey ads literally this week. So my brain is a million different places, but it's just like, it's one of those things where, the slippery slope argument is really the only one that in principle is very hard to like rebuttal. Like if it's just one and it blends in with the jersey, most people are going to get over it relatively soon. But things like this, where you're directly seeing, obviously, like a change in the cup patches and whatnot, and then the first team to get two ads on there, that's when everyone's going to go, okay, it's over. Like that, we're going to be Europe in 10 years. So the slippery slope one is definitely fair, and this is just another kind of example in a long line of.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyways, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the new general managers in the Eastern Conference, and maybe do a how do you feel about it Friday. Depends on how long that conversation runs. But stay tuned for segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, there are 2 new general managers in the NHL, in the Eastern Conference, rather. The first one is, let's just lead off with it, Atlantic Division, Toronto Maple Leafs. Brendan Shanahan wasted no time hiring his new general manager, Brad Treliving, former general manager of the Calgary Flames, responsible for that Calgary Flames team that made a pretty decent run, 2 years ago now? And then saw Gaudreau walk away to the Columbus Blue Jackets, and then traded Matthew Tkachuk for Huberdeau and Weegar, which, let's be honest, like, I know that trade did not work out for the Flames in this first season, and I think a lot of that had to do with Daryl Sutter more than it did with how that trade shook out, because that trade, at the time of the trade, looked pretty good for both teams. The Panthers got younger, kept their window open longer, and the Flames got Mackenzie Weegar and Jonathan Huberdeau, who's a little older and needed a huge extension. But I think both, though, it seems like a pretty good trade to me. I think I want to wait a little bit longer to see who won that trade. It's only been 1 year out. I want to see if a new coach in Calgary can revitalize Huberdeau, because a lot of it seems like there was locker room issues revolving around the head coach. But I'm already off topic. Scotty, Treliving is the new general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs. What do you make of that, and how do you think that's going to affect some of the conversations we've had about Toronto and the Red Wings?
Yeah, I think Twitter had a field day with that one, just because Toronto is desperately trying to find postseason success, right? Desperately trying to find postseason success. They have all the regular season success in the world every single year, and they brought in someone who has a history of regular season success and a lack of postseason success yet again. So it's just like really, really funny. Like, Twitter had an absolute field day talking about it and everything. And I'm really interested in the direction that Toronto is headed this offseason. Like, I think this offseason is huge in determining the future. And we've kind of talked about that on earlier episodes earlier in the offseason, but like, there is so many different directions that Maple Leafs team can go. And so bringing in a new dude to run the ship with the amount of possibilities that they have in front of them via whether it's extending everybody, trying to find the money to pay everybody they need to pay over the next 2 years, or starting to trade assets away, is just absolutely fascinating. So I don't think we have like a resume that's going to predict the future and say like, oh, well, they brought in so and so that means they're going to trade everyone. Like, I don't think we have anything like that in front of us, but I am very, very interested, to say the least.
Yeah, it's just really fascinating because one of the things he said immediately about what his number one concern was extending Austin Matthews, which, I mean, I think we all realistically knew was going to happen. It was kind of a pipe dream that he'd be like, I want out, with how good that team is. And like Brendan Shanahan has made comments about like the core four is here to stay. But at the same time, with the urgency in which he hired Brad Treliving to replace Kyle Dubas, because again, we've talked about the new league year begins on July 1st. That's when all the no move clauses and no trade clauses that all of Marner, Nylander, and Matthews have kick in. It does make me wonder, like, as part of the urgency in getting new general managers so they can facilitate a trade to open up more cap space. And that's where besides the fact that they're in our division, that's where the relationship with the Red Wings comes back into it, because this is a guy who's already architect.
You can just say built
a blockbuster trade once already. Yeah, that sounds fine.
Oh,
created, made, constructed. That's better. Constructed a blockbuster. Thank you, Scotty. A blockbuster trade already. So, this is me grasping at straws. I realize that, but with how quickly they brought him in, do you think that maybe that's on their mind, that they brought him in so quickly so they can facilitate a trade?
Well, that was my point, was like, I when looking at like his history, like you're trying to find any like patterns, right? Like you're trying to find any patterns in his past that could possibly predict the future. And I just think that Toronto's situation is so unique that really would be, like you said, kind of grasping at straws. But I think the crazy thing is Pittsburgh. Like that whole situation with the Penguins.
Oh, they jumped on Dubas the minute he was out.
Yeah, well, that's a fascinating situation too, because that's been a team that for the last 5 years has been on the decline, right? And they're just trying to hold on to the Crosby and Malkin era as long as they possibly can and not let it go. And so bringing in kind of like a young, I don't want to say up and coming anymore, but like a young GM who's helped build rosters in the past to kind of navigate them through this weird time where like Pittsburgh's trying to make their window as long as possible, but like they barely missed the playoffs this year. Like, are they going to really take a step back forward next year? Like, that's a really, really unique situation for Pittsburgh and for Dubas.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Can you really blame Pittsburgh? I mean, you have
no.
It's either this, it's either hang on, and you know what? It's tough because you're looking at a situation the Red Wings were in, almost a decade ago, where they were trying to hold on. They had an older Datsuk and an older Zetterberg, and Illich wanted Holland to keep that window open for as long as possible. And we talk about it in hindsight, saying that, yeah, the Red Wings should have started their rebuild earlier. But it's hard to do that when you have generational talent that's still really good. Like Crosby and Malkin and Letang still played really well despite their age. And you think you might be able to squeeze one more playoff. It's really hard to blame them in the moment, but you realize too that if you delay it, it could turn out disastrous. You could end up like the Red Wings, where you're in the 7th year of your freaking rebuild and nothing good has come of it yet. I mean, that's exaggerating, but like no first overall picks, like just it's a weird situation to be in, because that's a team that definitely should be looking at a rebuild sooner rather than later. I think as much, I don't want to praise the Chicago Blackhawks, but they looked that gun down the barrel and said, pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And they traded Kane away, and basically you're like, Tay, sorry, buddy, but this is what's happening. And I don't want to say respect, but I agree with that decision of getting, I don't respect the Blackhawks at all, but I agree with the decision of starting a rebuild sooner than later, but it's a tough pill to swallow. And you have Crosby, Malkin, and Letang again. It's hard to not run it back. I get that. I just hope that in 5 years, Pittsburgh Penguins fans aren't saying to themselves, man, we should have done this sooner.
Well, that's the point. Well, it's tough because I understand the like trying to maximize value in all your assets and everything, but I don't think you can with a guy like Crosby. Like, I just really don't think you can. Like, I think that that's just one of those rare times when, as an organization, you just got to be like, you know what, we're gonna ride this till the end. Back in 2006, we were like, we're riding this all the way through, no matter what. Like, we're gonna see this thing through the end. We're gonna take this dude for the rest of his career from day one until the day he retires. And I think you kind of owe it to yourself and to the fans and I mean to Crosby, honestly, to just kind of ride it out and just take it all the way to the end. Even the guys you mentioned, like Crosby's just on a different level than even all those guys. So yeah, I think that it's just one of those situations where they're just going to milk every single ounce of hockey that Crosby and Malkin, like I said, have left, and they're just going to see what happens.
It's crazy that we're talking about Crosby in a sense that he's like past his prime and it's the later years,
and he's still
so good,
a point a game player.
But it's also crazy to talk about Crosby in that regard at all. Like, right. He's been such a fixture of both of our youth for so long, and we're both 27, right? Or I'm 27, you're like 25.
Both of our lives, not even really youth. Like, he came into the league when I was in third grade.
I think it was like 2003.
Yeah, dude, I was in third or fourth grade when he came into the league, and now I'm in my mid-20s, and he's still a point-a-game player. Like, that's just that. I don't know. It's a weird feeling. It's similar to, like, to put it in Detroit terms, like when Miguel Cabrera retires. Like, he's been on my baseball team for this pretty much the exact same length as Crosby's career, honestly. And
it's hard. I can't even remember the Tigers without. Like, I know he wasn't on the. Was he?
He wasn't on the 06 team.
Yeah, he wasn't. And like,
he got him in 07. So
yes, like, I don't remember the Tigers without him. I really don't. Like, he just feels like he's been a Tiger my entire life.
Right. But, and like, yeah, like the Lions, like the 0-16 team. I was in elementary school, so like when Stafford left, like that was, like, again, I was in my mid-20s when he left, and he had been my quarterback since I was literally in elementary school. Like, there's just certain players like that you just will always associate with a team, a sport, etc. And Crosby certainly is one of those guys.
So there's a couple other things, or one more thing I want to bring up that I wanted, but I mean, it's already passed and it's over already, but there were 4 players that the Detroit Red Wings had to sign to an ELC by 5:00 on Thursday. We're recording this. It is currently 5:14. So this has passed already. It's over. And if they didn't, they would lose exclusive rights. And those players were, let me pull it up for you real quick, because Cap Friendly tweeted it out earlier. They're always friendly over at Cap Friendly. Gustav Berglund, Albin Grew, Oscar Plandowski, and Pascal Zito. The Red Wings did not sign any of those guys to entry-level contracts, and today was the deadline to do so, thus losing their exclusive negotiating rights. So they are gone, essentially. They're no longer prospects of the Detroit Red Wings. Now, Grand Rapids could still sign them. They could still remain in the organization, but now they are free to do whatever they want. They're no longer technically Detroit assets, but I don't think any of that's really huge losses. I mean, I don't think anyone's really a surprise. I thought maybe Albin Grew might get an ELC at some point, but none of those guys really rose to the occasion to be like, hey, our future is with Detroit. It didn't seem like, at least.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed.
And I did want to ask you how do you feel about it? I know it's already like 33 minutes in, but how do you feel about Monty Williams becoming the new coach of the Detroit Pistons?
I cannot express to you how excited I am. I got down on my knees in a Walmart and just started crying.
I just said that.
I was so amped though. I called one of my best friends right away and we freaked out about it.
You didn't call me.
That's you're right. I said one of my best friends. Yeah.
Wow. In front of all these people watching right now.
But like one of my buddies, he called me right away and we freaked out about it. That's one of the premier coaches in the NBA. I don't understand the people that are like, that's too much money. Like, coach money doesn't go to the cap, dude, and it's not yours. Like, why does anyone care? They could have given him 500 mil for all I care. I don't care. Like, it's a salary cap sport, and that money isn't toward the cap. It literally doesn't matter.
And guess what? When you're the Detroit Pistons and you have literally no direction and you have no future, you got to spend big to get guys to come here because it's going to be hard to lure guys otherwise. Now you have somebody.
He said no when we lost the lottery. We offered him a contract and he said no. And then they went back and with incentives, it could be literally go all the way up to an $100 million contract.
I cannot wait until his introductory press conference when he's like, they're asking him like, oh, why did you what changed your mind? And he's just to like pretend like it wasn't the money.
Cade Cunningham.
I really believe in this team's future. They got a good group of young kids. It's like, oh, then why didn't you say yes the first time? Well, yeah, okay, buddy. But I don't care. Again, I
don't care, dude. That's a premier coach in this league. He's young. He can be the coach for a long time. I'm so pumped. I think like we're getting Cade back next year. We're getting Monty Williams. And I know the lottery didn't go our way, but still a top 5 pick in the draft. All 3 of those assets are all guaranteed to come back next year. Plus, we have salary cap space. I think next year could be a fun one for sure.
And before Cade gets hurt again.
All right, calm down, dude.
Just saying.
That's why I didn't call you.
Oh, wow. Jerk. What? Get out of here. When did you write that? When did you do that? This is why I don't want you to have power. I can turn it off. You're ridiculous.
That was awesome.
Dang it, I didn't know.
All right, mine overrides yours, dude.
All right. I also did an apostrophe there. That wasn't grammatically correct. But anyways, we'll be back with a new episode on Monday. Scotty, any final thoughts?
We ball.
I'm going to turn this off. Jesus, what is wrong with you? Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.